Good morning, one and all. I'm Abul Rajani from VBind Education Technologies, Mumbai. We bring industry experts live into your classrooms. So, dear students, today's masterclass is on what recruiters at the top companies expect from the young talent. And to enlighten us with her knowledge, we have with us Ms. Farheen Mehdi. Ms. Farheen is currently the lead recruiter at Facebook. She comes with over 9+ years of experience as a professional HR generalist, specializing into recruitment, training, and development roles across various domains, including internet, technology, media, retail, manufacturing, and FMCG. So, without any further delay, I would request Ms. Farheen to take it over.
Thanks, Abul. Hi all. You've already got my introduction, so I wouldn't get into that. Abul, thank you very much for giving the kind introduction there. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad I could be of any help and assistance. I'll share a small PPT. I've kept it really brief, but it's more for us to interact. I think the session should be more about your questions and how I can help answer those to the best of my ability. So we'll get started, and please feel free to stop and ask me questions if you like. I don't have any issues. You don't have to wait till the end of the conversation here or the end of the PPT. So the main purpose of me being here today is just to make you understand what the companies look for in today's world, in today's generation, especially the tech companies or the FMCG firms or generally the internet companies as well, right? So Abul, if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the first and foremost important thing is what you really want. Being aligned with what your goals and objectives are is extremely important to us. What is it that you want for yourself? What is it that you see yourself in your career? Where do you want to see yourself? I'm not saying where do you see yourself in like 5 years or 10 years, but in general, where do you want to see yourself? What do you want to do? And from the company that you want to work for, what is it that you're going to get out of it? And what is it that you're going to give in return, right? So that's primarily aligning yourself with the goal of the company, the mission of the company, and aligning it with your career development as well, right? The next would be alignment with values. Once you identify what is it that you really want to do, and you know which company that you're going to go with, you have to align with the values of the company. If you don't see yourself aligning with that, you're probably not the right person for the job, for the company, right? If there's a mismatch, even if you have the best of skill sets, it's just not going to take you anywhere. For example, if you're looking at a consulting firm, you have to really see. Sorry, if you could go back, Abul. Sorry about that. Okay. Again, so say for example, it's a consulting firm. You'll have to really find out whether or not you're cut out for it. Consulting really means that you need to interact with people. You need to get out of your comfort zone. And of course, there are other values that are there. Like say, for example, you have move fast here at Facebook, right? Are you in line with this? Maybe going out, meeting clients is not your thing. And you're pushing yourself really out of that zone there. And are you comfortable doing that? Right? So making yourself in alignment with the values, the culture of the company, because I truly believe that the values are the culture of the company. Say, for example, where the culture is to be a yes, sir, no, sir sort of a place, that's how their values are built. Or if you look at any sort of startup where they give you the freedom to work how you want to work and do what you want to do and probably depend on your strengths, is what makes the culture of the company. Now, you really cut out for that or not, right? Again, going back to the kind of tech companies that we have right now, the internet companies that we have right now, and the whole startup culture, people really want you to move fast, but at the same time, be very innovative, right? And are you up for that challenge or not? Can you think out of the box? Can you push yourself beyond what is your comfort zone is definitely what makes the culture of these companies today. The next one would be must have versus good to have. A lot of times as a recruiter or an HR professional, when I'm talking to my business, I'm asking them, what is it that you really want in a person or in a role? apart from the skill sets, right? It could be like an engineering role where we're looking for somebody who has a PHP knowledge, but that's not the only thing that makes the cut for any company. We have to look at whether or not they can communicate well. Are they going to collaborate with external or cross-functional teams? Are they comfortable managing, say, difficult stakeholders, right? So there are a lot of other things that are as requirements. And like one of the roles that I was recently working on was must have is definitely the communication skills. Second is say a Python language, people management, stakeholder partnership. So primarily when you go back to business, they're always talking about finding that unicorn. It's our job as HR professionals to basically bring them back to reality and tell them, what do you really want? And then ask them to divide between must have versus good to have, right? So you must be aware of what are the good to have items on any of the roles. It's not just the skill sets that mentioned on the JD, right? And a lot of times when people get rejected, they ask us this question as to why I got rejected when I had all the skill set that you asked for on the JD. A lot of times we cannot put all of the good to haves on the JD. So you have to understand where the company is coming from. Soft skills, like I said, there are so many things when it comes to communication. It could be even your personality, right? How do you present yourself? You go for an interview and you're talking to the interviewer there, but you don't have, say, eye contact. You could be the best of the person on the role. You could have the best of the technical knowledge. But if you don't have an eye contact, they'll feel really uncomfortable because then you're probably talking to, say, multiple stakeholders. You're talking to cross-functional teams and they don't see you fit there, right? So make sure that you put out your soft skills. You're well-groomed yourself. How do you talk to people? Taking those right pauses at the time. Also, making sure that you're not rushing into a conversation, and how do you take that particular pause to think through a problem as well, right? The next is achievements. A lot of times we overpower our achievements. We would go and say, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. But is it relevant? Is it the right time? Is what you really need to look for, right? Even starting from, say, a resume, if you put it out there, you'll probably see that you should put something which is relevant or put something which will make sense for the recruiter or the business to look at and say, okay, this person, this kind of an achievement really helps me. When you are at an interview stage, you have to slightly slip in through and not overpowering any of the other conversation. It's like, okay, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, and I'm here to sort of brag about myself. No. You put your achievements out in such a subtle manner that it comes across that you're a very strong personality and you know what you're really looking for. The next would be an impressive resume. Extremely important because that's the first time a person will be looking at your profile. When I say impressive, I'm not saying you should put all infograph or anything like that, but a lot of times we miss out on simple things. Firstly, alignment with the JD, alignment with the role. If you can highlight anything that's there on your resume which is relevant to the role, will be really helpful. You have to understand that business or the recruiters, they go through thousands and thousands of resume a day. So they're not going to spend that 10 minutes or 15 minutes on your resume. They're probably going to glance through. So what is it that really stands out for them, right? And also highlighting, again, things like you've done in, say, extracurricular activities. Say maybe you were a member of Exec team. Maybe you went on a student exchange program. Maybe you worked with an NGO. Although it's not relevant, but it just shows you your personality a little bit. And then it might just resonate with the culture and the values of the company. And they'll probably think that, okay, this is the kind of person that I want to get on board. Right? Any questions so far? Am I going too fast and everything is okay? If you guys can give me a thumbs up, I'll probably figure it out. Okay, great. The last one that I've put together is art of negotiation. A lot of times I've seen, especially people who are just fresh out of college, all they talk about is money. I'm not saying the experience don't, they do, but they have a different way of tackling that. But just coming to a lot of companies don't negotiate. We all work with, say, certain bands that they have, and they probably don't have much of a levy to sort of work around numbers. Whenever you are talking at an interview stage, when you're talking to someone, you're not bringing out numbers or money as the key criteria for you to look at the job. You're telling them that this is important, this is what the role I'm motivated about, and I'm completely sold on the opportunity. Coming to numbers, let's not get emotional about it. This is what practically we need to look at. And as a recruiter myself, I negotiate on a daily basis, although we don't have a no negotiation policy. In a lot of companies that I've worked for, including Facebook, they've been Deloitte and stuff. But there is a way of putting across your point, and how do you talk about your numbers and show what's more important to you, right? So that's what we would look at in terms of art of negotiation, and that's why I call it an art. Especially, say, for sales folks, if they don't negotiate, it's not a good sign for me, because they're supposed to be good at that. But there's a difference and a thin line between how you negotiate and being arrogant, and doing it the right way. So you need to be really, really careful of how you do it and how you put your point across. Okay, now that we don't have more questions, we can probably move on to the next slide. Abul, do you want to go to the next slide? Yeah. So I've just put a small cycle here as to how people can get recruited at companies, what the companies these days are actually looking for, be it a startup, be it a full-fledged tech company or anything. But this is what the criteria are. One is a very, very strong resume. Make sure there are no grammatical sort of errors there. And you've highlighted everything that you could. Make it as simple as possible, but extremely impactful. So having that strong resume is important. The next one is motivation. A lot of times, like I said, you need to be in alignment with your career objective and the goal of the company or the mission of the company. A lot of companies these days do look at how motivated you are to do this role, right? Especially for freshers, because they're looking at job. This is their first time job. Why do you want to do this job, right? So you need to have more clarity on what the role is all about, what the company is, what the company is looking at doing, what's its vision and what's its mission, and how are you going to take or use that towards your career, basically. Then research on the company. A lot of times people miss out on research. It's very, very important to be prepared for what you can be asked for, especially on the company. Like, say, for example, you're going to Deloitte for an interview. What are their products? What are their services? If you're not aware of that, what's the point of even interviewing, right? So if you come to Facebook, you really need to know what we do. Okay. Then again, preparations for the interview. I think most of the companies these days put in a lot of effort in preparing the candidates as well from their end as to what they could expect in terms of the interview. You need to really brush up, read up on not just the company, but about the role as well. A lot of times there's information available on Glassdoor, available on Google, where you can go and find out if there are any case studies that are coming up, what type of questions. A lot of times people go on LinkedIn just to see what the team looks like and what their background is, just to get yourself prepared. So just think of creative and out-of-box sort of ways to prepare yourself, and that's just going to take you a long way. And we've also noticed a lot of times the interviewers are not asking you specific questions. It's not like, okay, just do the coding and walk out. But if there is sort of an operations or a sales role, they would really want to see how much in depth of a problem can you get into, how strategically can you think through a problem, your problem solving ability. They could probably ask questions like, okay, there's a room and this is the meeting room. How many balloons do you think you can fit into a room like this? Right? So simple problem solving, logical thinking sort of questions, and how would you prepare for that, right? And they will see how much are you on your toes. They would see how can you think through a problem very structured. So structured thinking is again very important. So preparation for the interview would really help you take to the next level. Portraying your strengths. A lot of times we've noticed that companies are focusing a lot, especially these days, on your strengths. What can you bring to the table? What are your strengths? And we would focus on that. It's not that we're avoiding your weaknesses. We will definitely help you build that. But a person would perform better when they know that their strengths are being honed. So portraying your strengths is extremely important. I would also like to include how much of a self-reflection do you have, right? People these days, the kind of culture, the kind of companies that are there nowadays, they're very well aware of the kind of people that are bringing in and where they see them grow, right? So career development and growth for a person is very important even before they start hiring. So you need to be aware of where you want to see yourself, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what do you need to work on. So just having that self-reflection is extremely important. It's just going to take you a long way. I think in all of this would really lead us to a great talent. So if you could see, it's not just about skill sets, but it's about so much that goes into bringing in the right hire into the company. So I would probably stop here. I think I'm towards the end of my presentation as well. The whole intention of keeping it small is so that I can make the session really interactive. I think we can get a lot more information out when we're talking. So I'll open it up for questions. Let me know what questions you have and I can help answer those.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ms. Farheen, for such an insightful session. Let's open the forum for question and answers. So I think there is a question coming in from Neswadia College of Commerce. I would just unmute your college so that you can talk, or you can put the question on the chat box. Neswadia College, are you able to hear me? I would request all the other colleges to get your questions ready so that you can just throw it up to the master and you'll get all the answers for it.
Okay, so I've got the first question. Do looks and personality influence our selection? So looks definitely don't. Personality, when I say personality, it's about how confident do you come across, how comfortable you are in your own skin is what we mean by personality. We definitely don't go for looks. That's definitely not the thing, not at least the companies that I have worked for all this while. So please keep that out of your mind. It's just that you need to be presentable. Presentable is another thing and looks is different. So you need to be presentable. Think of, which company that you're going for. Maybe for a sales job, being presentable is extremely important because you're dealing with external clients, right? So there's a difference between looking good and being presentable. So I would avoid that. I hope I've answered your question. I have another one. There is one very basic question which every interviewer asks, which is tell me something about yourself. Can you please help us with perfect answer or formation of the answer? Okay, you're putting me on the spot here. I'm not supposed to be telling you the answers. How I would actually structure it, a lot of times I see with the freshers, they start off with, okay, my name is so-and-so, I come from so-and-so town and I've educated here. You don't need to say all of those things because it's already there on the resume and the interviewers are expected to know those things. So avoid that. You could probably talk about, what interests you, considering you're a fresher and you don't have some experience, you could probably talk about what really interests you. Maybe talk about some activities that you do over and beyond and why you're really looking at this role. I think that would be really helpful. And just structure it, right? And not going way beyond. And a lot of times interviewers would also say, can you talk to me about yourself in a quick minute or two? So you really have to think of how can you portray your strengths, what and who you are in that 1 minute, right? So you're not rambling, but at the same time, you've structured your answer in a manner where you're actually showing your true personality. So think of those things. You could probably take a minute and then go to attempt that question. Don't jump into it right away. Nobody's judging you for whether you took a minute to answer or not. So that's going to be very critical. Next question is, so I'm facing a problem in getting hired. There is a conflict of interest because my dad has his own company, because are unwilling to hire me. I would rather avoid this question. I don't have context to the background, so I would skip that question, to be honest with you. It looks more of a personal thing to me, so I'll skip that. Next questions, please.
Okay, so I would request if there are any questions coming in from Purnima University. I would request students to come forward towards the camera so that you can come up and raise your question. I have put your college on the unmute mode. You can come in front of the camera and talk.
Okay, so does aggregate really matter if the person is really talented? What I'm assuming out of this question is what you mean by marks, right?
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are. If you could just hold on for a minute, I'm tackling another question. Is that all right?
Sure, ma'am.
Sure, thank you. So your marks really don't matter here. At any company, at least, we don't really look at your mark sheets or anything. What we're really looking at whether or not you'll be able to perform at an interview stage, right? So if it's a technical interview, we would call you in, you would do your coding interviews and stuff, and that's how you will be assessed. And it's just not the technical skills, like I mentioned, it's an overall package that we're always looking for, especially in the new age companies, in the topmost companies these days. It's a package that we're really looking for. It's not necessary that you have the technical skills and we'll go ahead. It's usually a combination of everything, and whether or not you'll really fit into the culture and environment of the company, because that can make or break both the company and the individual who's getting hired. So to answer your question, no, that does not really matter. Okay, Kanaka. To the lady who raised the question first, I'm not sure if it's there on the chat box. Do you want to go next?
Yes, Purnima University, lady from Purnima University, you can ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is that can you help us know about the jobs or the work which are being carried out in Facebook? Like in other firms, it's for maintenance, testing, and developing. So what are the jobs that are going in Facebook? Like the fields in which we can work?
Sure. So this is not specifically to Facebook, but now that you've asked me that question, I would probably defer it to visiting our careers page and going back there and looking like the kind of roles that we really have open at the moment. But as you understand, it's a tech company. So the kind of roles that we have are a little different from what you're asking for. I'm sorry, I couldn't answer your question directly because it's pertaining to Facebook and I want to avoid that, but please have a look at the careers page and that will really help you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Hi, good morning.
Ma'am, my question is, how do you look at a person who is not very good in communication skills, but is very much confident?
So that's a tricky question and a good one. It depends on the role and the requirements. A lot of times we've seen that as long as the person can articulate, it's fine with us. It's not like, if you go back to a consulting world, right? Communication is the key there. And they're supposed to be dealing with clients on a daily basis. And it's not just clients which are local, it could be international clients as well. So there, the communication could be extremely, extremely important. But there are times when we're looking at, say, technical profiles where the skill sets are much more important and they're not required to deal with, say, external parties or external stakeholders, and they're just internal. So being articulate would just be more important, and being confident about who you are would be more important. So I would answer it that way.
Thank you so much.
No worries. I have a couple of questions coming in here, so I'll just hold a pause on that. The next one is, hold on. Are internships from small organizations also considered by the interviewers, or only MNC internships? So it depends. It depends on what sort of internship you've done. Is it relevant to the role that you're looking for? I think then it makes a difference. It shouldn't count, at least not in the companies that I have worked for. It doesn't matter which internship you've done as long as it's relevant, right? If interviewer asks, why should I hire you? Okay, that's a very interesting question. They do ask that question a lot of times. And that's when you need to know clearly as to why this role is important to you and why you want to be in this role and why you want to be part of the company. And hence I'll take you back to the point of you need to be aligned with the values of the company, with the goal of the company, and what value would you add to this role, right? So think of those points before you even get into an interview stage, because this is definitely a question that a lot of people do ask. Okay. What are the views of auditing firms like Deloitte, KPMG, etc. for Indian CA? Do they ask questions on daily updates that goes on in world and in economy? So I have never hired for the auditing service line for any of these companies. I've worked with Deloitte, but it was mostly for the consulting and the tech side of things. They do consider a lot of CAs, yes. Very important to them. But I think in general, what people ask questions is just to see what your general smarts are. Can you think of problems? Can you think of solutions for it in a very structured manner? And in general, I think this is from an interviewer to interviewer, so I won't be able to give you a very generic answer on that. But people do ask some random questions at times, which you need to be really prepared on. But this is not the only criteria people should hire you or not hire you. Okay, the next one is, several years back, changing companies was considered to be an instability issue. Is it being looked at the same way, or do you think it enriches our experience and skills? It depends. If you're changing jobs within few months or say a year or so, it's definitely a flag for people, be it recruiter or the business. It is definitely a flag. Unless you have a solid reason behind it, because there have been cases where a startup was shut down and you had no choice but to move on to something else. So that's fair enough, as long as you have a reasonable reason to give behind it. But otherwise, if you stuck with a company for 2 to 3 years, it just shows that you were stable. And if you've moved into a similar sort of role with a different company, it's fine. It's fine, because it's always good for you to gain that experience. People sometimes change countries. So it's always exploring that option. But as long as you don't show them that ability to skip every now and then, and could money be a reason, then it's fine. Okay, I'll hold on and I'll come to the gentleman who's waiting for me at the Purnima University for the question. Do you want to go next?
Respected ma'am. Ma'am, my question is that how we respond to those questions which are based upon situation reaction.
Well, you should know that better. That's what they're going to test you on. They could probably give you a situation saying that, okay, I'm at the airport and my flight gets delayed and the next flight in so and so time. What are my options? Very random questions like this. And what they're really looking for you to think through is, how would you come about it? What is your thought process around it, and how structured can you be around it? And I won't be able to give you specific answers in that, because that's going to be my thought process. But that generally shows your on the ground sort of thinking, how quick you are with your thought process, and how structured can you get, right? And a lot of times we get really surprised by the kind of answers that come through, because even the senior most person is not able to think through those answers, and somebody just surprises you a lot. And the challenge is, I would love to work with somebody like that, who's constantly challenging me so that I can learn from them. Doesn't matter if it's a junior or a senior person. So I would say that think through it. If you want to take a moment, but think through it, give really structured answers, and see how would you solve for that problem, because that's where it's going to make it or break it for you. Extremely important part of any interview process.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, Janvi from Asia Business School. My question is, how do HR keep a track of employee performance considering a company having 10,000 employees? It depends from company to company. Everybody has their performance cycles that goes on. And I think in a lot of companies these days, there's a very open culture. So they have very open sort of sessions. They talk, they have discussions on a regular basis. You don't have to necessarily sit down only through performance reviews and come up with what's working, what's not working. You can actually do it on a regular basis, and that's where it'll really help company to take it to the next level. It doesn't matter how many employees are there in a company. Say, for example, in a consulting world, they used to get their feedback from the clients that they work for. And when they were on the bench, they obviously didn't have any feedback, so they would go and talk to their managers and sort things out. And companies like ours right now, we make sure that there is very open dialogue between the business and HR, and we are on top of everyone's performance. There's no way anyone is slipped. The performance cycles, the feedback is extremely rigorous in any of these companies these days, because otherwise we won't be able to achieve what we are achieving these days, right? So I hope I've answered your question there. If the interviewer asks, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Well, you should know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And exactly why I said you need to be self-aware. You need to know what your really strengths are and weaknesses are. And you can't just say, oh, I'm a good communicator, or I am really good at Python. No, that's not your strength or weakness. When they ask you about strengths and weaknesses, they're actually talking about you and your personality, right? So please make sure that you're giving those relevant answers there. Having those skill sets through education and stuff is just not your strength or weaknesses, right? A lot of times, like, for example, if I have to think of something, I'm someone who is extremely impatient, but I would use it as my strength, especially in a company like mine right now, where moving fast is very, very important, and that plays as my strength. So how you basically convert your weaknesses into strengths and how you portray that is also very, very important. But you need to first identify what your strengths and weaknesses are and what you're going to say there, right? Please do not go and say something that is just skill set bound. That's just not going to take you anywhere. Okay. What's the next one? What does the HR look for in a resume? So recruitment, right? So like I said, resume is very, very important. We are looking at thousands of resumes on a daily basis. So we're not giving each resume 10 minutes. I'm just going to be honest with you. We're probably glancing through it. What we're really looking for is relevance, right? How relevant is your profile? What have you really portrayed on your resume in terms of your strengths? How aligned is it with the requirements that we have? For example, there is a fresher role for, say, somebody from our operations team, and we're not necessarily looking at any specific skill set that we're looking for. It could be somebody coming from an operations, a BCom background or an MBA or anything like that. But what will really stand out your profile is how you've put it together, how you've structured it, how you've highlighted your achievements. What we're really looking for is that where are the achievements, right? Especially in a fresher's profile, what we're always looking for is where is that achievement? Have you done really well in your academics? Have you done well in sports? Have you done anything over and beyond your academics while at college or school? Maybe you worked at an NGO, maybe you've done an internship, maybe you've done a project, right? So something which is relevant and which will stand out compared to the other profiles would really be helpful. Okay, I'm just going to take a pause here and ask, is it helpful? Are the answers helpful to you guys? Is the flow okay, or am I going too fast?
I'm sure the answers are helpful to the students. If they are, then just wave your hand like this. Yeah, I think we are getting a lot of hands here.
Okay, great. The next question here is, thank you for the valuable guidance. What are the opportunities for a management student in Facebook? So I would rather avoid Facebook-specific questions. Again, I would defer back to looking at our careers page. You must look at careers page and identify what are the kind of roles that we have open. Usually, fresher roles are very difficult to find. It's the senior roles that you're really looking for here. Right, so I'll probably skip that. Okay, tech support experience in a startup, does it count? It depends again. It depends on what we're really looking for. Maybe if I'm looking for, say, a customer service sort of a background or an operation sort of background, maybe it'll be helpful. But if I'm looking for getting someone into client solutions team, or maybe in the consulting world, it just might not count. So it would depend on the requirement of the role. Okay, hello, ma'am. How to avoid questions on your weaknesses? There's no way you can avoid weaknesses question. One thing is self-reflection is important. All of us, I'm not saying weaknesses is a bad thing, but all of us do have something that we're not really great at. That does not necessarily mean that's a weakness for us. It's something that we don't enjoy doing, right? Or something we don't put a lot more effort into. So you could probably portray it in the right manner with the interviewer saying that I'm not sure if this is a weakness or not, but this is something that I don't really enjoy doing, and I think I should put a lot more effort and see where I can go with this and maybe convert it into a strength. So it's just how you tackle your question and convert it into a strength would really be helpful to you. Okay, the next one is hello, my.
Yeah, there are students standing there in Purnima University. If we can just take that question.
Sure, go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My question is, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ma'am, my question is, as we are freshers, so can we negotiate? And if we can, then how can we negotiate?
Sure. So again, you have to understand the philosophy of the company, whether or not they negotiate. There are a lot of companies they don't negotiate, especially with the freshers. They have certain bands that they work with. So you have to respect that. And the bands are obviously in line with the industry sort of norms. So you have to respect that as well, especially for freshers, right? Some companies do pay a lot, some companies don't. It just depends on the opportunity. So first you need to be sold on the opportunity, and once you're sold on the opportunity, as a fresher you don't have much for negotiation in hand. Like for example, I'll give you, someone goes to a top B school, there they have a little bit of a power to negotiate is because of the university that they are at, and maybe because they have some sort of an experience. With freshers, it's a little difficult. I would rather say that this is probably not the time to negotiate, but even if you do, what is the basis of your negotiation, right? You don't have a previous salary that you want to negotiate accordingly. You could probably say something like, okay, I'm coming in with this. You've told me that I've done really well. What is the best that you can do? I'm going to trust you with the numbers here. This is the first time that I'm going to be working. This is the first time I'm going to be starting my career here. So I'm going to depend a lot on you. So you can have this open conversation with your recruiter and then take it from there. Yeah.
Could you just start?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Ma'am, my interest is in development field, software development field. And my question is like how the career graph rises for a developer in any reputed company, or what are the opportunities for a developer to grow along with the company?
Sure, there's a lot of opportunity, especially in the tech world these days. A lot of opportunity. You just have to identify where you see yourself in the future. Because I've seen a lot of times as you grow, be it in a company or anywhere outside, as you grow in your career, people from the tech world would like to move away from the hands-on job and get into more people management and project management sort of work. At the same time, there are others who are continuing to do their development work. They just want to continue doing the hands-on work. They want to be involved in the coding part of things. And that's how they grow in the firm. And then they're probably developing apps, they're developing products for the company and stuff. So you just have to identify the path that you want to take and identify the company that's going to take you to the next level, to be honest with you. And the new age tech companies are really investing a lot in people, but you need to identify where you want to go. And a lot of times, I'm not saying that everybody has that clarity in their career. You have to take things as they come and sometimes step out of your comfort zone. And if company is throwing sort of a challenge at you, maybe you should take that and see if that's something that you want to do. And that just opens up a lot of horizon for people to think, oh, I didn't know that I could do this as well, and maybe I can pursue my career further in this. So you just have to go with that flow.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, is it necessary that our skills or personal skills sections of our resume should belong to a field only?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
My question is it necessary that our personal skills or skill section of our resume should belong to a field only?
So your personal skills will be different, right? Of course, it'll be something over and beyond what you're studying or over and beyond what you're getting out of your academics. So I would say that you should highlight everything that is relevant. It could be something that you got from your academics, from your projects, or even extracurricular that you've done over and beyond. So the skill set should be there. It's not necessary it's only coming out of your academics or anything relating to your skill set or to the job. But as long as it is relevant, it's fine. I mean, I would rather avoid putting something like, I have great communication skills on the resume. Please avoid doing those things. We do know that you're applying, so you do have communication skills. So having those simple things just shows that you're over and above a notch from the others. So make it as simple as possible, but extremely impactful.
Great. I think we can take questions from the chat box.
Okay. Hello, ma'am. My name is Anant. Living in the technology-based world, what are the changes in the recruitment process now as compared to earlier, and also what softwares are a must to know for an HR, since my interest is into the same. So the process has definitely changed in terms of we're giving a lot more importance to how fast we move as compared to previously, where the roles used to be open for a very, very, very long time. And I've worked across the globe. I have experiences working in different continents. So I can tell you this, that it takes a bit of time for certain roles. There wasn't any process in place. A lot of times referrals used to come and they used to just hire them without the interview process. But nowadays it's become very, very open and very dynamic as well. We have structure around how we're going to go about the whole recruitment process. What are the different sourcing mixes that we're going to take? Tools are usually internal. So you have to come up with creative ideas of how you're going to use the internal tools and external tools. Softwares are usually internal, like Facebook uses something internal. I know Accenture used to use something internal. Deloitte had something which was external. So it just depends from company to company. But the new age tech world is usually using some softwares or tools that they've developed in-house. So you have to go and hone those skills as you join the company. But the process has changed. A lot of focus is on candidate experience. A lot of focus is on moving fast and getting the right folks in. So you have to depend on multiple sources to hire the right people. So you just have to think out of the box is what I would say. Okay. How can students from small business schools get recruited in companies like Facebook and Google and other MNCs? I would rather avoid that question. I don't want to get into anything specific from my company per se. But in general, I don't think people should think of, I'm coming from a small B school and I'm not going to get hired. No, it's about how aligned you are with the goal, how much passion you have for the company and for the goal, and you should just go for it. I don't think that should stop anyone from hiring the right talent that we want. Okay. How money matters during the commencement of career? That's something very personal and I think very subjective. I think people have different backgrounds that they come from. So I don't want to judge on the basis of that. Money should definitely be important, but I think building career in the right way and in the right direction should be the key thing. And money will eventually follow is what my thought process is. But a lot of times I've seen that people are in difficult situations and they go for whatever comes through. If you want to go with my advice, I would rather say identify what you really want and see a place where you can actually see yourself growing, and then money will follow. And if you perform well, it'll just follow, right? So I wouldn't give it too much importance, to be honest. The next one, I would like to know the scope for MBA in HR currently. So I've seen people from diverse backgrounds moving into HR, not necessarily having an HR degree or anything. It just depends on where your interest lies. MBA as a degree really holds a lot of importance, but what do you make out of it is also another critical thing. We see MBAs and engineers and everyone, every nook and corner of the street these days, but what is it that you're really getting out of it is important. So, you know, if you're doing your MBA, identify what is the area that you want to focus on, and that's where you want to take your career ahead. I'm not saying that you should not change your career path in between. You can, if that's where your interest lies, but you really need to be clear about it. Right? So scope for MBA in HR, it just depends. It depends. If it's a fresher, maybe they would give it a chance. But if it's a senior role, people usually don't take chances unless you come from the relevant background. So I think that's how I would define it. Okay, as you go through a lot of resume CVs on a daily basis, what should be the length of a resume? It depends. If it's a fresher, I wouldn't say more than a page. If it's a senior person, it could be more than a page because they have so much to talk about. But I've also seen infograph sort of resumes where they put in everything, which is also helpful to us. So just be very creative about it, I think. I'm not saying you should put a lot more colors or images or anything, but just see how creatively you can put across your point.
I think there is a question coming in from IMS Engineering College, and the student is raising the hand. You can go ahead.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
I want to just know that what is the basic information about company we should know before applying to that company? About company, what is the basic information we should acquire before applying that?
That's something basic you should know is what I will tell you. I mean, any company that you want to apply for, like I said, you need to be aligned with what their vision is, what their mission is. If you go on someone's website, say for example, you go on Apple's website, right? You need to really know what they do, which they fall under, how much their business is doing, what are the different products. And I'm not saying you should have all financials in hand, but it's always handy to know how well they have been doing and why, because doing that research on any company will really help you come up with intelligent questions, not just about your career growth with the company, but just in terms of how the company is growing and whether or not you should join that company, right? For example, say you're going for the big fours, say you're going for an Ernst & Young sort of a company. What do you know about them? You need to know what are the different service lines, right? When did they start their first office? What came about that they started their work? Who are like the exec leaders there? Right? And do you really look up to someone there? Like, for example, a lot of times people come up with us and say, oh, I look up to Facebook because there's Mark Zuckerberg there, right? But Mark Zuckerberg is a normal phenomena. Maybe if you talk to me about Sheryl Sandberg, maybe if you talk to me about Chris Cox, these are the people who've actually built the company along with Mark. It'll show me that you've actually gone in depth of the company, the roots of the company, and you've done your research and come. But at the same time, please be very, very mindful of how much information you throw at the interviewer. You're not trying to tell them that I've done this research and you're just trying to get that information into your answer somewhere or the other just to show that you've done research. No, please use that information very intelligently. Okay, next question, please.
Yeah, I think we can take the question from the chat box.
I think there was a lady who had a question there. Do you want to go back? Hi.
Ma'am, actually, I want to ask you, I want to know that what is the basic thing or what is the first thing that the interviewer sees in the freshers?
In the freshers? Again, see, when if it's about say face-to-face interview or a telephonic interview, it's only after your resume. So your resume has to be very impressive. Freshers, I know you can't put in much, but like I said, highlight the things that you've done extraordinary over and above that will be in alignment with the values and the culture of the company. So that will take you into the first step. Second is, of course, communication. Extremely important to the new age companies, whether it's a tech role, non-tech role, doesn't really matter, but communication is something that's going to take you a long way. How articulate you are, how thoughtful you are, is what is definitely going to impress them. And then the questions, right? Like, how do you think through that question? Your thought process is extremely important. Like, for example, I gave this thing of, I'm sitting in this room, how many balloons would you put in there? If someone comes up and says, oh, that's a stupid question, I don't know, of course you're out. Okay, you could say, okay, let me take a dig at it. I'm thinking this is the size of the room. I'm thinking these many balloons would fit in. Then I have to take into consideration there's so many people in there. So how are you thinking about it? Not necessarily if it's a right or a wrong answer, but just your thought process will take you a long way.
Now, it is important to add extracurricular activities in our resume.
See, for a fresher, I would say that anything which will highlight that you've done over and above your academics would be really helpful. Not necessary that everyone should have it, but if you do have it, you should highlight. But I'm not saying that, I went for a painting class, I have a painting certificate. No, that's not what is relevant. Think of something which is much more relevant to the company, to the role, especially. Okay, I have a few questions in the chat box. I think I'll take those before we close for the day. Okay, if one has a low aggregate but has the knowledge, and some companies have aggregate criteria, how can they get the interview? See, it depends again, right? So if a company has that kind of a criteria, then they have that kind of a criteria. We really can't help it. But a lot of times, even the marks show a lot of impression to the people. Like if you're not able to perform in that sort of skill set and that academic state, will you be able to perform in a company, and the kind of pressure that these guys go through, especially the startups these days, right? So that is important sometimes. Okay, does age really matter in climbing the organizational ladder? No, it doesn't. We have a lot of young leaders who are at very senior levels everywhere. I would give an example of myself. Like my husband is not somebody by age very senior, but he was a junior partner at Deloitte. So I don't think that really matters. Okay, I'm going to take last two questions because I have to run out. I hate to do this, but I'll have to. Just running out of time. Okay, the next one is there a way to avoid personal questions, and does it leave a negative impact on recruiter if I don't answer? These days, legally, I think it's not allowed for people to ask you those questions unless it is unavoidable. So it's fine if you don't want to answer. You should just let them know that you're not comfortable answering. It's fine. The last one will be, does participating in extracurricular activities in the college help in the job interviews? I'm not sure if it's a direct relevance, but it will definitely give you the exposure that is required. I'm sorry, I'm not going to take further questions. Abul, I think we should just sort of close up. I have to run.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Farheen, for taking so many questions and making it so interactive for the students. I'm sure you have inspired and showed a way forward to a lot of students present here. Thank you so much, Farheen.
Thank you, everyone.
I would request all the colleges to have a round of applause for Ms. Farheen.
Thank you so much.
I would request all the colleges to be seated. There are a few announcements here. The most important announcement here is how you can download the certificate for today's session. So I'll just take you through basic steps on how to download the certificate. Here you have to go on to the VBind's website. You have to sign up as a student here. You can see there are three options. You have to select sign up as student. If you are already a registered member here, you have to go on login, sign up as student. Once you log in, it takes you to the dashboard. Here you'll see a lot of other options. Along with that, there is a certificate tab. You can see this. You have to click on the certificate tab. Now you have to find the session that you attended here. The session is, you can see the session for today. That is how young talent can get recruited at top companies. You have to select that. Now you need to select your college, your professor name, so that the certificate gets approved by the professor and you get the certificate here. So I'll show you a demo of it. Suppose there's a student from JIET Jodhpur. it takes you to the quiz section. You have to answer few questions from the session today. And once you submit the questions, it will show pending for approval. And once your faculty approves your certificate, this is how the certificate is going to look like. So here the topic will be changed and the master name would be changed. So this is the certificate for the old session that we had last time. So that's about it. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you so much, all of you.